For the invite, I'm honored.
So back to the Grand Canyon, the Egyptians in the Grand Canyon. I've interviewed several people about that, and you're right. You know, one couple was camped there on the rim of the Grand Canyon where they figure this area is, and where Jerry Wills was going down. And they said a helicopter came up, and they had all kinds of photos and stuff. So a helicopter came up, got so close to their tent, it blew their tent over the rim. And then everything, all the pictures they had that was on their computer got wiped clean.
Ooh.
And then another couple, and an older couple, they was finding things out, and the black SUVs started following them, and same thing happened to them. Their computers, their hard drives got wiped clean. And then I talked to another guy who he got a paraglider and started flying his paraglider down through there, and no black SUVs or helicopter came after him, but he flew around, and he says he's seen some incredible things. So
wow. And I wonder what they do to zap it. Even a hard drive?
EM weapon. It's EM technology. They have the anti-drone, and yeah, it's wild, and it's because they don't want people snapping pictures like this, where you clearly see these straight terraces. This is the Tower of Ra, I believe, and or ISIS. This is the ISIS one. Okay, and right, no, this is ISIS. This is the ISIS temple. This one right here. It's the 5 or 6, right? And then so you got the cave, right? Like all these different entrances by the rivers throughout the systems. And I think it might be Horus. This might be the Temple of Horus or the Tower of Ra. It's one of the main ones there. But they're all so symmetric, and it's are these still the homes of those black flamed Anunnaki, and that you spoke of there, and or whatever they are, and that Rex Bear also privately told me he had a similar sort of encounter with something along those lines. He didn't really want to go into detail about what he saw and experienced, but that came from the clouds against thunderstorm that appeared out of nowhere right after they left, right after the black SUVs were like following them there after the Apache. So it's like everyone having parallel experiences, right? Like, sure, it's like, I don't want to believe there's these giant alien entity things like with black flames, but it seems that there might be, or something along it, and right. But there's military guarding, there's flight bans over this area. And yeah, so Cheops Pyramid, Shiva Temple, I think it was right there, that Temple of Ra. And there's literally 50 different named structure, temple, pyramid, I guess gods or demigods of the past that are in this.
I think they named it though in like the 1800s.
Well, that's what we're told.
Yeah, that's what we're told.
How do we know it just wasn't a map? They already had the names or renamed them to something similar. And so right here on Isis Temple, another big thing not a lot of people know about, but so we're told in 2001 that 2 airplanes took down 2 towers, but in 1950s, we're also told an airplane built a wall. It built a wall right here when it hit or crashed in the Grand Canyon. And so, sorry, here we go. So here's the the pictures of the old entrance into Isis Temple, the main arch canyon in. And then, yes, so they closed down the Grand Canyon in, I think it was like 52 or 57 or something like that. There was this supposed horrific airplane crash there, and it was to go in and recover all of the deceased people, they said. But yeah, so you can see like it is this remaining arch, and it's straight up this old entrance into Isis Temple. And that, yes, we are told that an airplane can both build a wall in a canyon, right? That it will either build a wall but also take down towers. Which one is it? One of these two conspiracies has to be true. It can't be both. I'm
Yeah,
going with
Bernie, I was told that I was told by like a guy in like a black military defense, a private military defense company, that he said where the plane crashed, like where it landed, is right by like the entrance into the caves that like Kincaid talked about. He's like, look up on the coordinates. And do you remember what year that happened?
I think it was 57. It
So
might
that
have
would,
been
so that
58.
checks out. Like so the conspiracy is like saying they did that so they could go and do the wreckage, which would give them cover to go in there and have access to an area they may or may not have had access to. Oh, wow.
Exactly. And builds this wall that now exists blocking that cave that is the center former entrance of Isis Temple. So, right. So this is the pre-airplane crash retrieval. And this is ever since then what exists. There's this.
I didn't know about that. You know, Truott, Dr. Truott, had friends in high places in Washington, D.C., had clearances, and he got him out some pictures and stories of what went on in the Grand Canyon. And some of these pictures that are out there, they came from Truott. That came from this high clearance Dr. Laney that he knew. Dr. Laney's now passed away, but some of these stories and some of that came from there.
And aren't there supposedly statues of like Anubis that were pulled out of there?
You know, you hear all kinds of stories, but yeah, there's you know, they said that you know, there was Orient or Egyptian or Oriental like things that were in there. You know, the Donna and Dwayne Woodward, the older couple who was investigating this and had the black SUVs, they talked to somebody there, and his brother was special forces and became a guide for the archaeologist into one of these areas, into one of these caves, and they let him go in the side of the cave. He said just long enough to see these statues, far enough, but they wouldn't let him go any farther. And so, anyways,
wow.
Again, you can see here. Clearly there's a wall. This is no longer that entrance, and it almost looks like the remnants of carvings of statues, right? Like it's potentially the stuff that we see in Petra or in India. Shout out to Walter Bosley and his theory of a former worldwide Vedic civilization remnants that it could be. And that just like you're saying how that there was evidence of both like Egyptian, the Orient, potentially Sumerian, it matches exactly what we saw with the Crespi collection too, and that these are all potentially remnants of these great empires that were formed after the catastrophe of like the Great Flood, the Younger Dryas event, the time of whatever Atlantis was, that then afterwards there would have been these new localized, like from a one world sort of civilization into these surviving warring sort of factions, but we're still traveling around the world and would have been accumulating these different collections of what we're told are gold tablets. And are these some of these gold tablets potentially, and these crystal relics, are they the high technology of the former civilization, just like we're finally getting to now, where we're finding that the solid state hard drives are light and information frozen in crystal and gold and stuff that
Right.
I like to believe that, like in like Egypt, what we're taught about Egypt, but that they're referring to gods and things that actually lived in America, especially like Arizona, Utah area up there. And like even, you know, Horus is depicted as a, you know, as his head is an Oplomado falcon. And that's indigenous to that area. Like now these Oplomado falcons have had to go because of environmental damage. Like they've migrated, you know, further south. But of that kind of information of like, wow, he's depicted with an Oplomado falcon head, and that's indigenous to this Grand Canyon area. So are they referring to that civilization that lived there, that predates what we're taught happened in Egypt?
Hey, man, AV Adams, how you doing? I see Jen Ottens and man, who else did I see? There were several of you, man. How you guys doing? AV Adams said something about Crespi, and I'm glad you know about Father Crespi, man. That was something that was really interesting to me.
I have to state on this part that 100% there was 2 rooms filled with golden tablets that were all gold, and that is not made by locals. They did not go out and mine new gold to then refine it down into tablets and sheets to then give it away for nothing, right? Like he was literally paying them for the artwork that they would bring him, right? So that's why they made a whole bunch of the clay ones and stuff like that you're actually referring to. And yes, there was all of that, but you know, he wasn't paying them in gold. So like, just logically, it makes 0 sense that they would be forging the gold relics, like, you know, monetary. They're doing it for monetary incentive. Why would they, right? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
So, you know, I happen to know quite a bit. It's been a while since I've done Father Crespi, but Jake or Dr. Paul Chessman went and visited Father Crespi, and he took Jay Golden Barton with him. Jay Golden Barton was a great friend of mine. Jay Golden Barton, give me his Jay Golden. They've all passed on now. But Jay Golden Barton, let me photocopy his journal of when he went on these trips to see Juan Moritz and the subterranean tunnels, Father Crespi and all that. And I got some of the pictures and stuff in it, some of the video footage of that, you know. And Jay Golden Barton says that when Father Crespi, when they went back to see him, Father Crespi told him that they stole all of his collection from him. And then when he passed away, they was trying to smuggle a lot of it out on an airplane. They figured to the Vatican. The government stopped it, so it didn't all go, but they gave it to some museum and archaeologists. The majority of it, the rock artifacts, the stuffs like that, they Kim Johnson Howdy, they deemed as fraud, and so all the rock artifacts and things like that, they just crashed up and used it as rubble on their roads. And then the gold artifacts and things like that, they melted it down. You know, they melted it down. There's some of it still survived, you know, that went into some of the museums there, but the majority of it got destroyed. And Father
Crimes against humanity, right?
Father Crespi was not happy about that, not one bit, that they took it from him. They barred him from his own collection.
So straight up,
unfortunately, we're hearing about a lot of this destruction of artifacts, and it's in it to cover up the history, is what it feels like.
Jay Golden Barton told me that Father Crespi told him Father Crespi had quite the education. You know, he had credentials, a lot of credentials, you know, archaeologists, all kinds of credentials, you know. He knew for a fact that there was a lot of fraudulent stuffs, and he put those in one room. He put the real stuff in the other room. And he told Jay Goldenbart and Dr. Chessman, you don't want to see anything in this room because that's fraudulent stuff. This is the stuff you want to see. He knew there was fake stuff.
There's so many cases like this when dealing with these sort of finds. Do you want to maybe go into one of the famous ones that you've been involved with, documented similar sort of parallel story there?
Yeah, I'm not sure which one you want to talk about.
No,
But
like
first, I want to say,
one of the
being we're in the
booby
Grand
trap
Canyon. What's that?
So like was it the Burrows
Brewers
or
Cave?
the
Burroughs Cave?
Brewers Cave, yes.
So before we go there, man, while we're in the Grand Canyon, you know, I'd stumbled onto a unique set of hieroglyphs, neatly and painstakingly carved into a cliff wall. You know, it took some time to carve this, and it was high in the cliffs. It was virtually inaccessible to get to. It's not on an easy path, a beaten path. You know, it takes a lot of effort to get there. You know, while trying to research that, I wrote some papers on it. I had a website, and I shared that, and a friend of mine seen that I went to high school with, and I happened to run into him, and he says, hey man, them things are pretty cool. He says, I ran into some strange markings. What do you think they are? And you know, I had to meet up with him later, and what his story was they down to Lake Powell, which is formed by the Colorado River, which flows through the Grand Canyon. You know, they dammed it up and made the lake. Well, he was in a houseboat, and the lake was as high as it had been, and they went up as far as they could get this whole houseboat up a canyon, and then they spent the night there, and then in the morning they got up as family and hiked around and was exploring, and they came into this panel of rock petroglyphs, you know, and they thought it was cool because it wasn't your regular native Indian petroglyphs, you know, so they took their family photo in front of it, you know, so he had records of them. And then 10 years later, he's telling me, and he brings me the picture, man, it clearly looks Egyptian to me. And I'm thinking in my mind, if the Egyptians in the Grand Canyon is real, why wouldn't there be something farther downstream, you know, or, you know, so I mounted an expedition, several of them, to try and find these, and he told me where, but the lake has dropped so far that 100 feet in vertical elevation, when the terrain is on an angle like, you know, that's miles. And so to pinpoint them areas in miles, you know, I've done several expeditions, and I've come up empty-handed every time. But while we was doing that, we started researching on the internet, and we found a lady who'd found another set just like that, not as big as this panel, 30 miles away from where we was looking for the panel my friend found, you know? So, man, I would love to try and find these and do some ground penetrating radar, see if there's something that doesn't look natural, see there's something that ties into a civilization or something of the Egyptians being there. It might not be Egyptian at all. It might have been some Egyptologist that went there and went camping, and he wrote in this big, hard script that says,
we're not even going to go there, because then we're debunking ourselves when in fact you've proven the thesis, because like you said, we should expect to find them throughout the river system, and that's exactly what we are finding, and we will continue to find more of. And
that's true.
Terry, I love that information where you talked to the woman who found, it was in Utah, where she found a relic and it had Tutankhamun's high priest cartouche on it.
That was, oh yeah.
I love that. That kind of supports it, right?
that was, you know, there's been Egyptian artifacts found, and you know, these mysterious hieroglyphs I was talking about, I call them the mystery glyphs, and I started tracking them all across the western United States. There's 39 of them scattered throughout the western United States. But some of these sites, they found some Egyptian artifacts, and one of them is this egg you're talking about. In 1918, this young girl was hiking around near one of these mystery glyph sites and found this rock that was the size and shape of a chicken egg. You could see it had been carved. It was shaped to look like a chicken egg, and it had some markings on it. And they thought that it was just Indian scratchings on it or something. That young girl kept it all her life. And when she became older, her great-granddaughter was over visiting her, and she had terminal cancer. She was dying. And she was rummaging, going through some of her stuff, and she found that rock. She gave it to the great-granddaughter. The great-granddaughter kept it all her life because it was something that her great-grandmother gave her before she passed away. Well, she was sitting in the dentist office in California in the 70s, and there was a magazine put out by the Smithsonian Institute, and it had on it the articles in there was about King Tut's tomb. In the 70s, King Tut's tomb was making its round throughout the western United States. I remember when it came, I went to it. Some pretty cool stuff's in there, And anyway, she started noticing that some of the markings on this egg that her grandmother had given her was the same markings on King Tut's tomb. And so on his sarcophagus. So she took it to the University of Berkeley. They authenticated that it was a piece of alabaster from Egypt, and it had King Tut's high priest signature on one side of the rock and the cartouche of his name on the other. Now, this egg was found in 1918. They didn't even really know who King Tut was there. They never broke into King Tut's tomb until 1922. How did that happen? There's another site in Colorado where a guy got a hold of me, and I thought he was talking about he found a panel of mystery glyphs, and I stopped in and seen him. And when he was 5 years old, he was playing on a knoll near his house. He lived out in the country, and there was a depression in this knoll, and him and his dog was up there playing. He was 5 years old, and he found this black rock that was round and had been carved on it, and it was carved to look like an Egyptian scarab beetle, and it had Egyptian hieroglyphs on it. So he showed me that. Well, I sent some photos to some Egyptian antiquities dealers, and they says, man, this looks like it's the real deal. It's looks like it's not professional like one of the priests would do. Looks like more like a magician's amulet. It's something because they didn't have as much skill or as much writing knowledge as the priests or the scribes or whoever, and they said that it had Tutmos III's name on there. So there's Egyptian artifacts that have been found, and a lot of stuff is being found, but you never hear about it. If it's on a regular archaeological dig and they come up with something like that, they don't enter it into the record books. They just toss it to the side, call it a one-off, and that's it. And that blows my mind, because if they would record this out-of-place archaeology stuff, it might paint a picture of what's going on. But because
shout out to Michael Cremo and his literal out-of-place artifacts, forbidden history books, where of all the cases that have been actually reported. And it's like, that's what's so great about your work, Terry, is that you've compiled all of the different people that have now found these different artifacts and what they've got in their stories. And with AI, the fact that AI is one of the actual good, positive, useful tools when it comes to helping us in the long run verify this stuff, is that it's connecting to all of the actual timelines of when these artifacts are found, what's on them, and then deciphering the different languages, and that a lot of them are these proto ancient languages, and the different evolutions and thus time frames of them, and being able to verify that yes, this one is real, yes, these ones are fake, but then all of these ones are definitely real. And then it's it's going to give
and it's
level of authentication.
Sorry, continue. I apologize. Just to intersect, it's also talking about the details of the depictions that we're seeing in this, in the origins. Beautiful example, when I was in Utah, the Conklin petroglyphs and the very almost alien like influence that's heavy in there that they don't address and they're not talking about. It's really
a lot of people from all over the country there that's got a lot of great stories.
Amazing. I'm honored. Thank you.
Bernie could be saying something right now.
Right?
Bernie says he's honored. Let me translate. Bernie says he's honored. He's excited. Donate. We'll put the links.
Nice.
I love these people. All right. On that note, love you all if you can hear me, and we'll do this again soon. Ta-ta.
You crazy mother. Yeah.
It's just Bernie. Bernie just like Bernie.